Welcome to EPG Padashala. I am K. Rajan, presently working in the Department of History, Pondicherry University. Today, we are going to deal with the subject Indian culture, and the paper is Archaeology, Principle and Methods, and the module is an introduction to dating system. And how we are fixing the date of the archaeological material or any historical document is more important in understanding the past. So the objective of this dating system is to evaluate and appreciate the human behavioral activities and their cognitive scheme in a sequential and chronological order. To understand the evolutionary or functional processes involved in the cultural past with optimum chronological control. To learn cultural development and transformation in sequential order in the means within a time scale. Why he required all this sequential order or chronological order means without chronological control, it is very difficult to understand the social evolution or political concept or technological development. Nothing you could fix in a proper manner or in a time frame without understanding the date of the material. So, in history and archaeology, so the date of the material is more important. To know about the various dating system that involved in fixing the chronology of the tangible and intangible evidences, and to seek the help of the science to precisely date the historical documents wherever you are not having any historical dates within that document, then he required the science help. Through inherent physical, chemical or biological material analysis to learn the cultural development and the transformation in sequential order. An archaeologist or historian should always keep an eye the recent developments that are taking place in the dating system. Every alternative day, new system or science is growing or science is evolving. So new better dating systems are coming up. So archaeologists must aware of this development that is happening in different disciplines like physics and chemistry. And what are the dating systems available in India, and what is the purpose of this dating system, how it helps to reconstruct the past. The main aim of the study of the past is to understand and appreciate the human behavioral activities and their cognitive scheme in a sequential or chronological order, as I told you earlier, based on the intangible and tangible evidences available in the archaeological excavation or in the field work in a given socio-economic cultural context. To realize this scheme of study, the optimum chronological control over the material is required to understand the evolutionary or functional process involved in the cultural past. So, for any interpretation, fixing a date become a priority. So, how to fix a date? Then archaeologists should know. All the dating systems that are available today could be placed under two broad categories. One is absolute dating system, another one is a relative dating system. Then what do you mean by absolute dating system? An absolute dating system is the process of determining an age of an archaeological material or any other historical document on a specified chronology. So fixing a definite chronology is the priority. And also the relative dating is the process of determining an age of an archaeological material remains based on superposition of the context. In the sense, in a stratigraphy it may be a superposition, or in other way that different type of script can tell you the relative datings, or different type of the material can tell you the the technology involved in the material also can show you the relative dating. For instance, the temple architecture, how it evolved, based on the temple architecture, we can say the relative dating can be fixed. So in archaeology, the specimens are dated based on archaeological stratigraphy, or context, or typology, and technique involved in the material. So that way, we are following a two relative dating systems. But these relative dating, sometimes it is very difficult to determine exactly or closer to the date. For instance, we are getting inscriptions, we are getting copper plates, we are getting inscribed coins, seals, sealings, and several other objects written as what we consider as a written documents. But all these inscriptions and copper plates or inscribed potsherds or seals and sealings will sometimes may not carry the king's name. It may carry some other social evidences. So these copper plates which are not having a inherent dating system, normally we go for some other dating method. But some of the historical documents provide direct dates. Something like a king's name, sometimes it gives, sometimes the original year of the king's name it gives, it is further precious, and sometimes it gives the year, that means eras, that Saha era or Kollam era, Kaliyuga era, Gupta era, Harsha era, and there are several eras are available. That also helps to determine the exact date of the historical document. But in many cases, these primary sources never carry the exact information related to the dates. So at that time, the historians or archaeologists tend to date the historical document based on the paleography of the historical document or the script, the linguistic style. So like a historical linguistic, based on the type of the language that has been expressed in the course of time. So the language has not been expressed the same way what we are expressing today. So each time scale, we are having a different type of linguistic style. Even the same language, for instance, any language like a Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, or any other language, they have not expressed in the same way that what they are expressing today. So the linguistic style has been taken into account, and the content, the way for same act, in different way they express. The land grant of the Gupta times, the land grant of the Vijayanagar times is totally different. The way they express the land grant is totally different. So based on the content that are available within the inscription, then you can date relatively whether it belongs to Gupta times or belongs to Vijayanagar times. And the context in which they are given. For instance, the trade guild inscription of South Indian trade guild inscription, where generally goes in the after 8th century AD. So that way, the context in which we are getting, like a memorial stones that we are getting, Sadi stones we are getting, so Navakhanda memorial stones we are getting. When we are getting these stones, that we are having this context where we are getting and when we are getting. Based on that also we can date the material. So that way we can date the archaeological material depends on the size, typology, and content and context. For instance, this is a Stone Age tools. So this is what we call lower Paleolithic tools, and we can say hand axes. Sometimes we are getting cleavers. So when you may not be knowing the what period it belongs, exact period it belongs, but on the typological ground, it is a heavy duty Stone Age tools. So it is belongs to lower Paleolithic times. And for instance, when you are getting these type of palm leaf, generally you know very well that palm leaf cannot survive more than 100 years. So when, but we are having all the ancient literary works written on the palm leaf, like a Rig Veda or Sangam literature or Ardha Sastra, several historical material, or you can say literary documents have written on palm leaves by from generation to generation. So every time they copy the material in a different leaf. So that way the date of the material written on the palm is one category, and the date of the leaf is another category. If you date the leaf through absolute dating, it gives very late date, even less than 100 years. But when you read the content of the palm leaf, then it may go to even 1000 years. So that way, how to date them based on the content is more important. For instance, there you can see the several period palm leaves are available. Though we are having a 5 or 6 bundle of palm leaves, but each palm leaves belongs to different period. But palm leaves are palm leaves that have been used only about 100 years ago. So, and besides, and we are having a inscribed potsherds. This inscribed potsherd can be dated. There are absolute date can be carried, and we can make relative dating also. How to give a date for this material is, first thing is, we may not be knowing what it has been written on that. So it has written as Andwan Adan in a Brahmi script. So based on the script that has survived in India between 5th century BC down to 2nd century AD. So this date of this potsherd will fall between 5th century BC to 2nd century AD. That is the relative dating you can give. Secondly, the language that has been used in the script or in this inscription or inscribed potsherd is either it is Prakrit or Tamil. So the language of Prakrit survived in India also can be determined, and based on that also you can date it as absolute date cannot be done, but you can take relative dating. And secondly, that the pottery is a rasa-coated painted ware. This rasa-coated painted ware, what popularly called Andhra ware, is found in a particular time scale. You can say that between 6th century BC to 1st century BC, this pottery was available in the archaeological context of South India. So based on that, we can say that this pottery belongs to that period. And beyond all, if you want an absolute date, then you can send it for archaeomagnetism or thermoluminescence dating. So once that date comes and you are based on the historical linguistic, based on the script, based on the ceramics, and based on the stratigraphical position in which you have collected this material in archaeological context, then you can connect both absolute dating and relative dating, and you can come to a conclusion. So that way we can fix the date of this ceramics. And for instance, if you take the seals and sealings, and you are having rings, so there are different scripts are used. There is same script and different times it has been used. This is our Brahmi script, and the first one on the left top corner is read as a Kuravan, and you are having an anthropomorphic figurine with a headless anthropomorphic figurine, and on the right side Veli Chamban is also written, and also Uban is written, and Tittan is written. So these are 4 archaeological material, but available on the surface. So it is very difficult unless you know the archaeological context, or what you say stratigraphical context. It is very difficult to date this material. So in that relative dating method, based on the script and language or paleography of the script, you can relatively date these materials. This is the way we are using the material. And secondly, when you see that when the coin is introduced, when the circular shape coins is introduced, when the figure on the coin is introduced, how the name is written, and what the script is used, and what type of language is used, what is the name of the king. That way you can give a absolute dating as well as relative dating also. So in this case, that Mark Kothai, the name of the king is given. So you can, based on already you are knowing the date of this man based on the literature, then actually you can give absolute dating to this king. If you are not knowing the name of the king, then you can go for relative dating. For instance, these two sculptures, even iconographical features, or what we can say iconographical study, helps to date give an approximate date to a sculptures. For these are Jain sculptures, and you could see that the style of these sculptures clearly shows that it belongs to after 10th century AD. So it maybe belongs to 10th or 11th century AD. So on stylistical ground, you can date it. So this is also one kind of relative dating. If any inscription is found on the base of this sculpture, that inscription may give absolute date. So based on that absolute date, then the sculptural style is determined. So that way it is a mutual between the absolute date and the relative date. Based on the absolute date, you can make the style, and the make the style, you can make the relative dating. So for instance, this is a temple belongs to which period, and this can also determine. There is a temple that are available, or temple architecture we are having from Chalukya's times or Pallava's times in South India, particularly the Hindu structural temples. So this temple architecture is evolved through the years. So that way, based on the temple architecture, you can give the relative dating, approximate date. This belongs to sometime 11th and 12th century AD. So if you are having an inscription on the walls of this temple, that give absolute date of these temples. So what there are, how to move about or how to get an absolute date, what are the subjects are available, or how many sister disciplines are helping in dating the archaeological material. It is a very interesting one. And in the recent years, that there are several development is taking place in the field of science. So that is giving enormous opportunities for archaeologists to date the material. For instance, this has been collected from an excavation at Shalvankuppam near Mahabalipuram, and it is telling that the Sabha, that means Brahmin assembly, and the Ur, that is a village assembly, what these agricultural people were having, the members in this assembly, received the amount to perform the festival of Kartikeya in the month of Kartikeya. The very interesting is that we don't have any temple nearby, and based on the inscription, you can able to locate that temple in that vicinity. So like that, Archaeological Survey of India have located that Kartikeya temple close to this inscription. Interestingly, this inscription provides the earliest occurrence of the name of the place, Mahabalipuram. So that way, when the Mahabalipuram is established, you can able to reconstruct the urban center. For instance, this is one type of memorial stone written in a particular script, what we call it is Vatteluthu script, and here it is the name of the king and the regnal year is given, and what purpose this memorial stone was raised. For cattle raid, the hero who died in the cattle raid, it has been raised. So you can get an absolute date out of this cultural material. And so besides this archaeological material or historical document which gives absolute date, and when you are not getting any absolute date in the archaeological material, then you have to go for the help of the science. So the science helps to reconstruct the past by providing a absolute date. Absolute dating techniques fall under four major categories or four major processes, namely what we call it as a radioactive process, and chemical process, and geological processes, and biological process. So the radioactive processes involves that what particularly the physics department involves this radiocarbon, and you are having potassium argon method, or uranium lead method, thorium lead method, fission track, thermoluminescence, and optically stimulated luminescence, what popularly called OSL dating, and you are having electron spin resonance, what we are called ESR dating. So, though we are having this much of dating, normally TL dating, archaeomagnetism, and potassium argon, and also radiocarbon, popularly the C14 dating is extensively used in archaeology. In the case of chemical process, we are having a amino acid racemization and obsidian hydration. These two methods are based on the chemical process. In the geological process, we are having archaeomagnetism. And if you take in a biological process, what we are having dendrochronology. So it is based on the botany. For instance, this is the amphora jars that are available in the Mediterranean world. What we call is Henry's Deschel classification of Roman amphora. What he has done, he has collected all the amphora and based on the shape and size, he placed it in a chronological order. So these amphora is basically based on the shape and texture and providing an probable date for each shape could be cited as one of the finest example for the typological analysis. So based on the typology, you can date them. Much of the amphora jars were available in Indian Roman forts, Indo-Roman forts, it are available. So, though we are not knowing the date, absolute date of this site, but based on this amphora jar, on the typology's base, you can fix the relative date. So, for instance, the Russell classified, and he has given a number 1 to 27, and each type will be having a particular period. So, which type you are getting? For instance, if you are getting the type number 20, then you can clearly says that the site is belongs to 2nd or 3rd century AD. So, that way on typological ground, you can date the archaeological material. For instance, after excavating for a longer period, after collection of several archaeological material and ceramics parts, particularly parts from the Harappan sites, the archaeologists can able to now define which part belongs to which phase of cultural phase of Harappan period or Harappan civilization. For that bottom one, which are having the S-shaped jar or dish on stand, you can see the typology or the shape of the dish on stand. The dish on stand on the top is having a long stem, whereas the down one you are having a short stem. So based on this typology, you can able to define that whether it belongs to the early cultural phase or the late cultural phase. And in the case of absolute date, as I told you, the radiocarbon or potassium argon or uranium series or fission track or thermoluminescence or the OSL or ESR or tree ring, these provide a exact date, or you can say the absolute date it gives. And regarding to the relative datings, we are having different types. And we are having historical dating. That means based on the paleography, based on the language, based on the script, or based on the typology, you can date the historical material. That the historical documents that gives the date, that what we call historical dating. And based on the typology, what I have shown, ceramic typology or true typology, whether it is a lower Paleolithic tool or middle Paleolithic tool, upper Paleolithic tool or microlithic tool, is based on the typology, the date is given. And the sequence dating seriation means, in the sense means in the how the material has changed over the years. For if you take, or if you take any transport system that has developed in the world, we are having from Harappan times, we are having bullock cart without any spokes or without spoked wheel, and after that we are having, that has been changed through the years, and now we have reached it to the present level. So the sequence of the series and how one particular transport system has changed over the year and the type of material available, you can also give the seriation mark. On the geological time scale, we are having Pleistocene, Holocene, and based on that we can able, for the time of geological time scale, from the Holocene time onwards, we are having the agricultural production. So that way we are having world system and pollen analysis, ice sheet cores, seabed deposit, and stratigraphy. So stratigraphy is extensively used in archaeological interpretation based on the archaeological stratigraphy. So that way you can give based on the content that are available in the potassium content in archaeological material or nitrogen content in the archaeological material. Based on that you can date which material is buried for a longer period of time. So based on also you can give a relative dating. In dating a Paleolithic site that runs in millions and millions of years, for instance, we got the date of 1.50 million years ago at Athrambakam near Chennai. And we got 1.72 million years ago the Paleolithic tools at Tikoda in Madhya Pradesh. And this dating is the recent advancement that made in the field of science. But irrespective of that, some of the tools of the majority of the Stone Age tools in India has been based on the relative dating. That we are having a lower Paleolithic tools, and we are having a middle Paleolithic tools, and we are having upper Paleolithic tools, and we are having a microlithic tools, and we are having a Neolithic tools. So each tool, it is having its own shape, size, and function. For instance, if you take a lower Paleolithic tools, most of the tools are hand axe and cleavers. And in the second stage, when you are moving to the middle Paleolithic, the size has been reduced, and you are having side scrapers and small hand axes you are having in the middle Paleolithic. When you move to upper Paleolithic, on long parallel blades is considered as upper Paleolithic tools. And if you move to the microlithic, the size of the tool also reduced drastically, and we are having a very small tools. And when you go to the Neolithic level, then we are having the total shape of the tool has changed, and what we are popularly called polished stone axes. That axes and edges we are getting. Though we are getting, one is the size has changed, and one is shape has changed, and function also has changed. If you take a lower Paleolithic tools, and most of the tools are used for hunting and gathering purpose. And if you come to the microlithic level, what we are getting a tiny tools, even the climate has been changed, that subsistence pattern has been changed, and you are having the different the way they collect the food for their survival has also been changed. So not only it is changing the behavior of the human, even the environment that has been totally drastically changed, it becoming to a arid condition. And coming to the Neolithic times, what we call it as an agricultural revolution, or what we call it as a food gathering to food production stage. So far, all the tools, particularly the lower Paleolithic, used for hunting purpose, and the microlithic tools are used for harvesting the wild grasses. But when you coming to the Neolithic tools, it is used for as an agricultural implement. So it clearly shows that agricultural production started from the period of Neolithic times around 6000 BCE in India. So the subsistence pattern has totally changed. Because of that agricultural production, that society is forced to stay at one place till seeding to harvesting time, The surplus production, because of the agricultural production, we are having a surplus food grains that they want to store it. So the storage requirement of storage has taken place. When they are having surplus food production or food grains, there is a amount of time that has been taken for this agricultural production. They forced to stay at one place. So the total family system is evolved, and they have started constructing a house, whether it's circular or square houses. And since they are doing a agriculture, they also started observing the monsoon pattern and what type of seeds, how to preserve the seeds. So all this all happened because of this introduction of these tools. So one farm, function, and the social process that all had taken place. With regarding to this palm leaf, as you told, this is one of the important historical document in majority of the language. Was not aware, though like historical documents or the literature is mentioning about 64 scripts were used in India, but we are not getting all, because the most of the that historical documents would have been written on palm leaf. So this is one of the biggest problem which we are facing in historical studies. Irrespective of this absolute dating or relative dating, your interpretation is more important. That means the scientist who is giving a date is absolute. For instance, if there is a construction in the house where is used wooden objects, the tree ring analysis, if you take a center part, will give one date, and the peripheral part will give another date, and in which part of the wood is used for the reconstruct of the temple or reconstruct of the house, we should be very careful. So irrespective of absolute date also, the archaeologist should know the context of the material. So that way, there are two dating system, broader dating systems are available in archaeological interpretation. One is absolute dating, one is relative dating. So these two dates are necessary to give a proper meaning to the archaeological material or to the historical document. Thank you.